Hi, and welcome to Spreadsheet Without Numbers, or as I like to call it, Behavior School for Bad Data. The idea is that we've got information that we collect either from third-party tools or else from a Google form or something like that. But quite often we need to correct and clean up that data, especially if we're going to take advantage of some of the tools available to us in spreadsheets. And that's where Behavior School for Bad Data comes in. So you'll see there's two links here. One is the link to the slides. One is the link to the worksheet that we're going to be working on. And I'm going to have those in the descriptions below. But by all means, please make sure that you go and visit them. This presentation has a lot of the different resources for it. And we'll talk about that in a second. So my name is Trevor Beck. I'm a Google evangelist, informal title. I'm also a Google Apps for Education certified trainer and innovator. And I've been playing around with spreadsheets for years. And one of the things that, a lot of people will say is, hey, you know what? Spreadsheets about numbers, and I hate numbers. And I am right there with you. I mean, finances and stuff like that, can't stand them. But there's a lot of great things you can do with them with that data that you collect from your Google form. Now, here's some basic links that would help you get started with using Google Sheets. I just want to show you really quickly what I've done is we're going to be going through a number of different formulas and functions. And I've got a page here for each one of those formulas and functions that we're going to be talking about. So it gives you a little explanation. It also presents to you what it's going to look like when it's in action. All right, so let me get back to my links here. And I'm going to open up a new worksheet. So when you click on this link, it's going to ask you if you want to make a copy. So you will need to be logged in with your McEwen credentials. And once you've done that, you'll get a sheet that looks something like this. So there's a number of tabs down the bottom here that we're going to look at and go through them with different exercises. And speaking of exercises, at the very end, there's an exercise you can work on, taking all the information you've learned and put it in there. So before we dive down into the spreadsheet, I just want to talk about Google Forms and how that works. So traditionally, people will use Google Forms to collect their information and take that information and put into a spreadsheet. Now, when you do that, here's a couple of things that people don't realize and some tricks on that. When you do that, what happens is Google actually inserts a new row for every submission that comes in. So when you open up a brand new spreadsheet that's tied to your Google form, you're going to have 1,000 rows there. You will never use them. Google just gets putting in these new rows in, so you'll never use those rows. And when we get into some of the reports in that, if you have blank rows there, they will show up in your reports, which makes things really awkward sometimes. So what I always say to people is get rid of all those blank rows. Now you can go and start here, scroll to the end, click on it, right click on it and delete it. But I have a tool that I use called Crop Sheet. It's an add-on that you can get. And basically what it does is it says, hey, find all the data that's here. And I only want cells that have data in them. So you'll notice here that I've got some columns here. I've got some stuff here. These columns are all blank. So when I go and use this tool, it's basically going to crop the sheet, doing all that for me. So I'm going to go crop to data. Because again, if you have 1,000 rows, it's going to go down there. And look at that. It's gone and done that. Gotten rid of all of our stuff. So that makes it a lot easier and cleaner when we do our reports. And we'll talk a bit about that in a second. Okay, let's go. I'm just going to delete. Oh, actually, one other thing I wanted to show too is sometimes when you're working with things, you can have this freeze columns here where stuff gets, these columns get frozen. And then as you move back and forth or whatever, that stuff shifts around. One thing you can also do is hide your columns. So we're going to be working on some stuff with names and that. We're not going to be dealing with this stuff in here for a while. So I want to hide that. Now I can go and select these columns and right click and do hide. There's my hide columns. And what it does is it kind of compresses everything together and you'll see these little black dots here. And that just means, hey, when I want to see them, I click on them. The problem when I do that though, come on mouse, me and my mouse, there we are, is that if I start doing some work and then I want to hide them again, I have to reselect them. Google introduced a great new tool a little while ago. You'll find it under View More Column Actions called Group Columns. And basically it does kind of the same thing. It identifies, hey, I am interested in these 5 columns, and there's a plus and minus sign here. And when I hit the minus sign, it compresses it. And then I can do some work, and then when I need it back, I can uncompress it. So it's kind of like hidden, but it's like an on-off switch. I don't actually have to reselect everything and hide it back and forth. And I find this tool just invaluable as I'm doing work. All right, I am going to delete this page for now, and then we're going to go into the first one here, which is called functions. So we're going to work on these functions right now. So here's the scenario. You've gone out and you're doing one of these fundraisers where you go and do a couple laps around something, and then people are filling out the form and they've pledged how much they're going to do. So we now want to start cleaning the data up so that we can send out emails, maybe make a certificate or whatever. One of the problems that ends up happening when people are asked to fill in their own data is they get lazy. And you'll notice here, Bessie Schwartz and Leela Balland and Joel, they did not properly capitalize their names. Now, I've done functions like this with like 500, 600 names, and I used to go through and manually go and clean those up. You know, select, highlight, bold, retype it into stuff. But we're going to use something called functions. So functions are basically what they are. It's a little function, like a little command, that only does one or two things very specifically. And some of you are familiar with the sum function where you have the columns and everything, and numbers get all added in there. This is a different function. The functions can actually be found. If you go where this sign here is and click on the down, there are all the different kind of functions, and it gets overwhelming when you go, well, what do these all mean? If you scroll to the bottom where it says learn more, it actually brings up a search function. And so you can say, you know what, I want to maybe change the date, or in this case, I want to capitalize a letter. So I'm just going to type in the word capitalize, and look what's happening. The function's name's proper, it gives you an explanation, and then there's, a bit more information there. I find sometimes these get very technical, so that's why in my slide deck, I actually went and did my own interpretation. So it's a little more user-friendly. But the information is there. There's some examples to look at. A great way to find stuff. Another great way of finding a function is just Google it. You are not the first person to say, how do I capitalize words in a Google Sheet? How do I do X, Y, and Z? How do I calculate the number of days between two dates? Lots of information out there. Google is a great resource, and there's lots of people more than happy to look after that. Okay, let's start on here. So when you start typing in information into, and actually I'm going to go ahead and do what I talked about here earlier. I'm going to group these. Oh, and as you're going through this slide deck, or this video, at any point in time, you can pause it, you can rewind it, or if you find it a bit slow, you can control the speed and speed up. All right, I'm just going to go and group those and put those away so I can see them. So we're going to do proper names. When you enter data in, that is data. So anytime you start adding stuff in there, Google Sheets says this is data. The moment that you want to do any kind of work with functions or a formula, so adding stuff or multiplying, you put an equal signs in it. And that says, hey, this is not just, this is not regular data. This is something different. So I'm going to start off with equal sign. And I mentioned before that the function we want is called proper. And as we go through this, just as an aside, you'll see that there's little black marks at the top of these cells. These are notes. So if you just highlight over the note, it will actually tell you what the formula is or the function is that you want to insert there. So it's just little notes that I've put in there. Makes your life easier. You can just copy it and paste it in. I'm just going to manually be doing this because that's the easier way to do it. Whoops. Go ahead. Stop that. So first of all, what's the function? Well, the function is called proper. It says capitalize each word in a specific stream. And I'm going to go, yes, that's what I want. So I can click here or I can hit tab to accept that. Now, what's kind of nice is Google's actually going to walk you through the steps. If you see a little question mark on that, click on that. That'll bring you through here. This is the display. I'm just going to expand the details. And it goes through and tells you what you need to do. So when you're using proper, what is the content that you want to capitalize? Now, they use the example here of the words, but I actually want A2 here. So I'm just going to select A2. Notice in my preview here, it actually shows me what it's going to look like when I'm done. Right? There's Bessie Schwartz, all capitalized. So I'm going to go and do that, and then I'm going to hit enter to submit it. And that's done there. Excellent. Go up to the top. Do you see that little, when I select the cell, do you see that little box there? If I click and drag that, that's called a fill down. And basically what it's doing is it's doing exactly that. A2 to A3, A4. It automatically creates those formulas as you need them. And you can see here all the names are correctly done. Excellent. We now have the name spelled correctly. So when I was working in our events team, we would have to go through and I get these lists and Trevor, can you clean this all up? So 500 names took me a while. I would clean that all up. Then the next thing that would happen is, we kind of like to have the names separated so that we can do a name tag, or we can, in the letter, we can say Dear Bessie, not Dear Bessie Schwartz. So can you go and copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, and break this all up? Yes, I can do that. Instead now, though, what I can do is I can use something called a split. So the split function says, hey, here's some text, break it up. How do we break it up? Well, let's just walk through the steps. So let's type in split, splits the text. So first, what is the text you want to split up? Well, we want to split up first name and last name. And as you can see here, I don't want to split this up because that name hasn't been corrected. So we're going to split this up. So we'll do that. And as you're doing these formulas, you'll notice there's a comma here to break down each one, each different section. So as you're typing, you're going to just put a comma in, and it'll walk its way through the next step. So here we've done the text. What's the delimiter? What do you want to break it up on? Well, you can see here they've put in a comma. We want a space. Now, when we are doing this, Google says, hey, I need to break this all up, but I don't know what text is. Like, I don't know if you're looking for the word dog and you want to put the word dog in, I don't know what that is because this is part of a formula right now. So anytime we want a specific word or a specific piece of text, we put it in quotation marks. So in this case, the piece of text we want is that space there. So I'm going to put quotation marks, space, close quotation marks. So there's the two quotation marks that we were talking about. And then split by each. Notice as I go and highlight this, all those things are down here. And you'll see split by each is bolded because that's the next step. So you can always tell what is expected of you next, whether it needs to be done, whether, and it says optional here. I always like to put this in, so I'm going to put in true. And then I'm going to hit enter. Look at that. Bessie Schwartz is entered. Now, I can do the fill down. But if there's already text here, and this is a formula, I can actually just double click on this square and it does the same thing as a fill down. The double click doesn't work if there's an empty cell. That's why we couldn't do it here. But if there's text here or something in the cell, we can go just double click and put it down. So look at that. 3,000 names. We could have gone in and properly capitalized it and done first name and last name and be done in seconds. One thing to keep in mind, because these are formulas, and this formula needs the two columns in here, this data is basically pulling from this. This is the source. So this data here is not written in. It is basically linked to this. So if you try and make a correction here, so let's say Wells is actually well, and I go and put in, well, let's say it's Weller. If I do something like that, I'm going to get this error message because the error message says, hey, I need to write into that column. You've went and typed something in there. New people often get that mistaken. You cannot write and correct here. I have to go to the original source. And if I go into here and made it Weller, then it will update here, here, here. Okay, pretty straightforward. Let's look at pledges. So let's say that these people all pledged $1 per lap. So what would the formula look like? Well, again, we need an equal sign to start with. And we're going to have $1. So 1. Let's say $2. Let's make it entertaining. So $2 times that cell there. Whoops. Try that again, Trevor. 2 times, we're not using an X. We have to use that star. 2 times G2 is 10. Yep, that's great. And there, as I go through it, Google says, hey, I think you're going to do this autofill again. Do you want me to do it for you? Sure. Saves the time. It's still doing the same thing. 2 times G3, G4, G5, G6. Okay? So that's the only math we're going to do. Promise. So let's look at the phone number. So I'm going to pop this guy open again. And, I'm going to do this and hide it just for now because we won't be using it for a while. But here's the phone number. Now, in this spreadsheet, I'm going to actually make it available to my drivers. And my drivers might need to call someone. So I want to format it in a way that my phone will recognize it as a number. So in which case it's usually the prefix, the three, so the 3 digits, a dash, and then the number. So I'm going to combine the two together. So I always ask this in a class, how would you combine that? So this isn't math. So you're not going to do 403 plus 276-2069 because those aren't numbers that you would add up. So you're not going to use a plus sign. What you want is the area code and the phone number. And that's the trick. You'll hear the term concatenation, which is a function, but here's an easier way to do it. I want this this cell here, so just double click, 403, and, meaning the ampersand, this cell here. Look at that. Gives me the number. Excellent. Whoops. Let's go back here. There we go. So I hit enter. And I'm going to do an autofill just for the heck of it. So when we want to combine elements, so if I wanted to combine first name and last name, I would use an ampersand. I wouldn't use a plus sign. Plus sign is, plus sign or any of those other things are for math. This is not math. This is combining data. Now, when you take a look at my column, it's like, okay, wait, where's this? I need to put in the dash in there. Well, okay, that's fine. Let's go back to our formula here. And we can see there's 403 and T2. You know what? I want to put the dash in there. So remember before we talked about text and how we treat text with quotation marks? We would do the same thing here. So I want 403 and I want to have a dash and I want the rest of the number there. So we'll go and throw that in there. And I'm going to refill, do another fill down here. Like that. Okay, so there it is, 403-276-2069. So using ampersands, you can start building formulas to bring data together. But wait, Trevor, there's a space there. What the heck? Where's that from? Well, if you've ever gotten a report from any third-party source, chances are there's always a space somewhere at the front or the end of the data. And as if I go over to my original data here and I click here and highlight, sure enough, there is a space there. So we need to get rid of that space. Do I want to go through and delete and stuff? No, I don't want to do that. Not manually anyways. So we're going to actually combine something called, another function called trim. So I'm just going to jump into the post office prefix here for a second. And I'm just going to do, this is equal to 276. So we'll put that in there. Whoops, that's not what I asked for. Let's try that again. Equal to, there we go. Do what I'm thinking, not what I'm, do what I'm thinking, not what I'm saying. So there it is there. And just to make life entertaining, what I'm going to do is, so 276, and I'm just going to put put an X here. So there's an X and there, just so you can see that there's a space there. All right, so there's that space there. What I want to do though is I want to use trim. So I'm going to go equal to, and I'll use the word trim. Now trim basically removes spaces, either spaces at the front or the end. So it'll do both. So basically point to the text you want to get rid of. I'm going to go point to that original piece. I'll even do the same number here. And you'll be able to see, well, actually, let's do it this way because it's centered. We'll get left here. But I'll be able to see here that there's no space there now, like there is here. Let's compare. We'll get rid of that stuff. Come on, go away. So there's the trim in action. What we're going to do is we are going to update this formula here to get rid of that trim, or get rid of that space. So D2 is where we want the trim to be. So I would just type in trim and then, whoops, open bracket, close bracket. So now we're saying there's the number and there's the dash and there's the rest of the number with the spaces taken out. And we can see in the example there, it's done that. I'm going to hit enter there. We can see the spaces out. I'm just going to do a quick fill down. And there we go. Now we have nice and cleaned up data. The trim function is awesome for that. Postal prefix. So my drivers are going to go around based on the 3 first letters of the postal code. So here in Canada, this is what our postal codes look like. There's these 3, and then they're followed by another 3. So, and these 3 here is basically an area of a city or a province or something like that. So I'm going to go in, and I only want the first 3 pieces there. So I could go and copy paste, or I can use a function called left. So left says, hey, give me starting on the left-hand side, count the number of letters, and then give me those letters. So I'm going to go into here, say left. So it says strings, meaning what data. So I'm going to click on that. Remember, we hit the comma sign. That'll take us to the next step. Number of characters, I want 3. There it is there. So now we have a great way of going through and getting all that information. So when you start looking at this, you can combine stuff together. So for example, let's take a look at naming conventions for accounts. So let's say I'm going to create an account, and I've done this a number of times. I want to create accounts in Google for Bessie. So I need to have something at trevorsdomain.com. So what I often will do is last name, first initial, and then the 4 last digits, right? Because there might be more than 3 John J. Smiths. So how would I build that out? Well, let's watch real quickly, and I'll just show you. So first of all, I want the last name, right? So I would use the split, and there's my last name. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, well, we're going to take this one, equal to, and I want the first initial of the first name. So I'm going to do the left, and the string we'll use, I could either use Bessie or the first name or here, but I'll use the first name. And it says how many digits. I want the first one. And the last 4 numbers of here. So I'm going to use right, because remember we did left. Well, you can do right as well. And what's the string? Well, it's the phone number here. And how many do you want? I want 4. There we go. Shorts B, 2069. I just created an account. Very easy to bring all that data together. So that is functions. Now I'm just going to go back into here and clean this up. So whoops, need an equal sign. Left. 2, 3. Okay. Yeah, it's filled down here. There we go. Okay, so now we have a bunch of data. We've gone in, we've cleaned up our data. We're actually not going to pay too much attention to this stuff here anymore because we don't need it. We've got all we need over here because this is our data that we want. Now, I've seen people, what they'll do with their original data when they want to try and sort things and stuff like that, they'll go in and they'll sort their data. My first thing is, or number 1 rule is, when you're working with data that comes from a Google form, never sort your original data. Because a lot of times people don't understand sorting and they get focused on this and they go, oh, I'm just going to sort these 3 items because I want everything in alphabetical order by proper name or first name. So they'll sort this, but this data doesn't change. And when you sort just this and this data doesn't change, it now gets corrupted and it's really, really hard to clean up. So I always say to people, never, ever, ever sort your original data. If you don't know how to use the functions like we're going to do, make a copy of it and then sort it. That way you're always protected. But I'm going to show you a different way of doing that using the sort function. So we're only interested in J, K, L, M, and N, let's say. So I'm going to go over to here. And I've gone in and I've created first name, last name, first name, last name, total pledges, phone number, and prefix. I want to now grab this data here, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use equal to sort. Sort a specific range. What's the range? Well, the range is going to be J through O. So I'm just clicking and dragging. It automatically selects those items there. And remember, after each step, I'm going to hit a comma sign. So the next is, so there's your range. Do you want it, which column do you want to sort by? I'm going to sort by the J. So that's our first column in the thing. So we'll just go 1. And then, yes, I want it to be ascending. So I'm just going to do this for now. Look at that. So now we've got everything, and it's pulling from that other data. So if I make changes to that other data, it automatically updates here. But look at that. There is all my stuff. Now, I'm going to look in here. I'm going to see first name and last name. I don't want that. I already have it at the top here. So I'm actually going to go up here and say J2 through N. There we go. Now that's a little bit cleaner. You know what? Maybe though, I don't want to sort by the first name. Maybe I want to sort by the last name. I just go into here and say, I want number 2 to be the column. And there we go. Everything's, whoops, I lost my screen, come back. And everything's all sorted here by the second name. So the nice thing is we've taken step 1, we've gone in, we've cleaned it all up. It's all our clean data. We've got all our columns there. We now can go in and I can quickly sort this data and get a nice easy report. In the second session second part of this session, or this training session, we'll actually go in and use something called a query function. And the query function allows us to get a little more specific and granular. This is very generic. Here we're just going to take everything. With a query function, I could go in and I could say I only want column J, column L, and column N, which I could easily do. And then sort that based on different criteria and filters and all sorts of stuff. And we'll talk about that in the second session. But as a quick and dirty, this is a great way of getting this stuff set up. Okay, let's move on. And we're going to talk a bit about filters and conditional formatting. Filters is one of these tools that answers the question of how do I sort this so I can only see the data that I want? Well, you're not actually sorting it to see the data you want. You just want to see specific data. Sorting is just a way of getting there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at how we can actually go in and sort this stuff ahead of time or filter it out. So let's start off with a scavenger hunt. Years ago, we used to have a scavenger hunt. And the worst part of a scavenger hunt used to be one piece of paper and 10 people. And all 10 people would run around and stuff. Well, now it's a little more modern. What we can do is we take that list of items and we put it into a spreadsheet, share it with the group, and then everyone can go their own separate ways. We don't have to worry about who's working on what. We can have, has this been found, yes or no, easy enough to take a look and we can track it and everyone has access to that stuff. I might be working on a roller skate, so I could actually put my initials in here just so that other people aren't trying to find it, because I've got a line on this one. But I'm going to go back to no. So here's the hard part. How do we go and quickly look and see what we need? Because, I mean, yes, you can look at it, but it really, you have to kind of look at it, especially when you're using capital letters and stuff. So an easier way to do this is we're going to use what's called conditional formatting. And conditional formatting basically means, depending what's in the cell of this item, change the color, the background color, or change the color of the text. So I'm highlighting this whole column here. I'm going to go under, so on the highlight, you just click on the title here. So I've highlighted the whole thing. I'm going to go under Format, and we're going to choose Conditional Formatting. So it comes up with a formula. So the first thing I want to point out is it's including the title. Okay, our label here. We don't need that. So always go in there and just change that to a 2. So it's not included in the list here. And then the format rules. What are you looking for? Is it empty? Is it not empty? I mean, you can do it in a number of different ways. We are going to do it a little bit differently. We are going to do it where the text is exactly letter Y. If it is, make it green. And look at that. It's done it for me already. I could hit done, but you know what? I want the ends to stand out a bit too. So I'm going to add another rule. And it basically makes a copy of that rule. You got to change it to what you want. So I'm going to do N is no. And then under here, I'm just going to click here. You can change the color from the drop down, but there are presets just by clicking here. I'm going to make it red. Excuse me. And now I'm done. So there's my 2 rules. And watch what happens here. If I go into here and I change this to yes, automatically changes the color. So conditional formatting is a great way for you to go in and just quickly identify certain pieces of information. You can do grades and stuff, so you have a different color if this grade is greater than 30 or less than 40 or whatever. So you can really target in on the different grade marks on students that might be struggling in some areas and stuff. All right, this is a lot easier to go through. But what happens if you've got a list of 500 names or 500 pieces of row? That's a lot of scrolling to go to try and find what's there. So we're going to do filters. Now, again, I'm going to go and select up here. I want to select all the columns because sometimes I might be filtering on different data, and we'll talk a bit about that next. But I just want you to go click here. That selects all the columns because when we create filters and filter views, they are tied in directly with the columns that you've selected. So you can find filter views in a couple different places. You can go under data and you can find a filter view. You'll see something called create a filter or filtered views. Here's the difference. If I have 10 of us who are working on this and I create a filter, it applies to everyone's view. So if I say I only want to look at the yeses, it automatically changes on everyone else's screen if they're watching in live time. And they might go back and then change it to no, and I come back going, well, I don't want no, I'm going to go back to yes, and we're fighting back and forth. Filtered views basically means you see that view, but it doesn't change anyone else's. The filtered views are shared by everyone, but it basically is I choose what I want to see. So let's create a filter view. Again, you can do it from up here. You can also do it from over here. I like doing it from over here. Create new filter view. Excellent. So first of all, we're going to give it a name. So this is yes, pretty straightforward. And there's my range that's going to be talking about. And do you see how we've got these little lines here? That's our filters. We can control what goes in there. So I'm going to go into here. And we are looking, you'll see yes and no. I can be real easy. We're going to just clear everything. And I only want to see the yeses. So I click on that. Keep in mind that whatever content that you have in those cells, that's what makes this list up. So if I had yes, no, and maybe, whatever I put in those cells will automatically show up here as an option. So you can't see that I have an OK. I'm going to click OK here. And look at that. I now have a view that only shows me this. So it's hidden all the other stuff. It's still there. I'm just going to turn this view off. The data is still there. It's just basically the glasses you put on to say, hide everything else, only show me what I want. Okay. I'm going to go in again. I'm going to create another filter view. This time will be no. Go into here and clear all, and it's going to be no, and I'm going to click OK. So there we go. We now have yes and no. The beauty of these views is that they are now saved with the document so that anybody can access them. So when I go look either from the drop-down menu, the drop-down menu here, there's yes, there's no. So let's go, there's yes, switch to no real quick, switch to none so I can see everything. Works really well, allows people to access it because everyone gets access to that. If I need to update something, so I'm just going to go into the yes here column for a sec. I can just select that and go in and make other changes. Now you'll notice there's every column that I had selected when I chose this, all the columns have the filter. If I only had the one column selected, then I would only be able to choose filters for that one column. So that's why I always say make them available to everyone. But here's a kind of fun thing too. I am going to filter on this, but there's a function here that I can sort this. Now again, it's not sorting the original data, it's sorting the view. So I'm going to say, you know what, show me all the items that have yes, and I want them in alphabetical order, just like that. And I'm going to go back to none. See, everything's still in its whatever order it was. It's not alphabetical. But the moment that I go into here and I select yes, I have the filter turned on and this sorted out. So the filter view, filter views have got some amazing, powerful options in there. The one I always like to show people, and we'll talk a bit about it in a minute, is, where did it go here? Filter by condition. So let's say I'm collecting a bunch of data and stuff, and there's different pieces. So there could be a bunch of different combinations in there. I can go into here and use those same rules that we had before. Text contains, text starts with, date, greater than, less than, or create a custom formula. So those are options that I really, really stress. Take a look, explore, figure out what's there, because you can do all sorts of wonderful things. And what's really cool about this, it doesn't affect the original data. The original data is always going to stay the same. But now I have a way of getting to what I want. Just show me the items that are yes, that we have or that we don't have yet. Awesome. Let's go to the next item, the prop list. And is this the one? Yeah, this is one. So this is your exercise to work on. So what we'll do is we'll go through, I'll explain what you need to do, and then you can pause the video, and then afterwards I will go through and show you how to do everything. But here's what we're going to do. Instructions are off to the side. So I want you to apply conditional formatting to the status column here. In that status column, if it's completed, I want it to be green. If it's in progress, I want it to be yellow. If it hasn't been started, I want it to be in red. And I should explain what this is about. Our theater production department puts together all these plays and stuff, right? And so this is all the stuff, the props that they need to get. So here you can see all these different props and stuff, and they're either going to buy it, they're going to build it, or they're going to pull it from the warehouse because it already exists. And so they create these reports and stuff available so that as someone's at the warehouse, they can just come into here, say, okay, show me everything that's got pull, and I will pull all that data that's out there. Or we can change the status, because especially if you're building, if you haven't started it and it's you're trying to build a river, you might need to start sooner than later. So we're going to be looking at that. So completed, in progress, not started, red, yellow. Create a filter view. I'm going to move the screen over here a little bit. Create filter views for each status. So remember those filter views? We just did that. So I want a filter view that says, show me completed. Show me what hasn't been started. Show me what's in progress. I also want you to create a filter view for build, buy, and pull. Okay? I want to know, what do we need to buy? What do we need to build? What do we need to pull? That kind of stuff. And if you get that done, you can do something called data validation. Data validation is these drop-down lists here. So what we're going to do, and this is the more advanced, so I'm not going to go through all that, but I will go through it when I run through this, the answers to all this. But we'll go through that. We will build a drop-down list here. We haven't talked about it. It's an advanced function, but we will talk about it, and you can see that. Okay, this is your time to go and practice. You can pause the video now. I will go through after this and build all this so you can see how it's done. Really recommend that after you've done this, come and do spreadsheets number 2. Okay, really easy. We build on this, do some more advanced functions and stuff, creating reports and stuff, and you will become a sheet geek in no time at all. Okay, so let's start off looking at this. Completed, in progress, not started as conditional formatting. I'm going to highlight everything here. I'm going to go under Format to Conditional Formatting. So I said completed is going to be green. First of all, as I mentioned, we don't need the label there, so let's get rid of that. So text is, where is it? Text is exactly completed. That's in green. Bam, good. Another rule, so we'll click there. In progress. That's going to be our yellow. And then we're going to do another rule with not started. Whoops, keep that there. Not started. And that's going to be in red. All right, so there's our conditional formats and stuff. Let's take a quick look though. What happened here? In progress didn't work. Want to think about it? Well, it's when we did this, we said everything is exactly, right? So there's your hint. We go take a look in progress. There's a space back there that wasn't there before, shouldn't be in there. So sometimes using exactly is you want that. Sometimes just contains is good enough. Something like this that's short enough, contains would be fine. But here, and here it would catch these kind of things where in progress has a space behind it. But taking it out, we get everything working properly. All right, that's our conditional formatting. Really quick and easy. And we can see here, I'm going to look at the not started and I'll change this to completed. Yes, it changes color. Excellent. Let's create a filter view. So remember our filter view, I'm going to go and click on this. You might find trouble with that because this is a merge column. So you know what you can do? We can just instead just select columns A through F, as long as we have all that in together. Okay, so we want a filter view for each status. Excellent. I'm going to go up to here. I keep grabbing the wrong one. Create new filter view. I'm going to do completed. Give it that name. and go my filter here. See all the stuff that's in here? So we're going to clear everything out, and then I'm going to do completed and hit OK. Bang. Now, just to make life easier for you, if you go to the gear here, you can actually duplicate this. Copy of completed. Well, this is going to be in progress. And we're going to go over to here, and we'll change this to in progress. There's our progress stuff. And then I'm going to delete this or duplicate this again. Not started. There we go. So now we can quickly, using the filter views, see where we're at. So we're back to none here. Great. Going to go in here, show me what has been completed. Okay, looks great. Again, this is great when you've got like 500 or something like items, you know, a long list. In progress, looks wonderful. Not started, excellent. Quick and dirty for us. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a filter view for build, buy, and pull. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm actually going to highlight both of these. Oh, actually, again, let's highlight all the columns we may use. So I'm going to highlight all of this here. And this time, I'm going to look at build and pull. But I'm going to make it a little bit different here. So I'm going to go in here, making the mistake again. Oh, turn that off. Create a new filter. So I'm going to do build first. Oops, build. So I'm going to go into build here. I am going to select build. That's great. Whoops, grab the wrong one. Let's try this again. I'm going to select build here. Okay, great. Do I care about these though if it's completed? Probably not. So why even bother including them? So I'm going to go under my status here, and notice how the status shows completed, in progress, not started. Well, I don't care if it's completed. Let's look at these ones. Excellent. And you know what? Just to make life easier, I'm going to also sort these. So now what we've got is we've got all this this data here, and I got the status here. So all the progress are there, and all this the not started are there. I'm going to actually put the not started at the top. So let's sort it ZA. There we go. That makes more sense. So there's all the stuff that I need to get working on. There's all the stuff that's in progress. Don't care about the completed, and that's my build stuff. Excellent. Let us go and duplicate this. And this one's going to be pull. And the beauty of this is once you've created it once, you can just repeat and reuse everything by duplicating it. Because now all I'm going to do here is go into here. I don't care about build. I'm going to do pull. Excellent. One more here. Duplicate. And buy. Excellent. So look at all the reports that we have. We can quickly go in and find out what needs to be built. Bang, hasn't been started. We better get moving on that. This stuff's in progress. Oh, great. And I can create others like a sub-status, like what percentage is done, that kind of thing. Stuff I'm going to buy. Excellent. I can also go in and do completed, in progress, and not started. So everything that I want based on the status. Excellent. So quick way of taking those data and put it all together. Now, I talked about data validation. Data validation is these drop downs. And there's a couple of ways of doing data validation. So when I look at this here, I would select all the columns that I want to do this. I'm just going to use this one here. So build. So I select all the columns that I want this involved in. I'm going to go under data to data validation. And one of the criteria is I can put my list of items right here. So build, buy, and pull. I can throw that in there and it'll update there all the time. Excellent. And if I need to add another one, I just come into here and add it in there. But a better way though is if you have a list somewhere that updates, then point to that list. So I'm just going to copy the data here because I want Lowe's, Bed Bath & Beyond, and Best Buy. So let's just grab, let's grab this real quick. So these are our sponsors. So I want to be able to assign sponsors to all these things here. So I'm just going to go and right click and I'm going to select the whole column again, go to data validation, and we're going to do a list from a range. So a bunch of cells. And guess what? That range, I can just click and drag here. I'm going to throw in a couple extra ones because I might add somebody new and hit OK. And so what's happening is we're going to get a drop down based on whatever is in here. So let's go ahead and hit save that. And there's a drop down. I actually don't need the drop down there. I should have removed it earlier. So I'm just going to go back into my data validation and remove it. We'll just remove it from here. There we go. So there it is. And it's looking up directly here. Notice we have Lowe's, Best Buy, or Best Beyond, and Best Buy. So it's not in alphabetical order. I'm just going to go in here real quickly. And I am going to sort it. I'm just sorting that range. That's all I'm doing. So there is. Now it's in alphabetical order. And guess what? That's now in alphabetical order. So I can quickly go and add things into here. Do I need to add something new? Sure. I'm going to add in Zellers. Not sure if they're still around with you guys. It's not around here either. And there's Zellers automatically gets added. So it doesn't affect anything. This is just a choice, and it's just like doing a copy paste. So if I go and change Zellers to something different, to Zellers 2, it doesn't change where Zellers was already selected. It's like doing a copy paste. It just says, hey, here's a list of things that you can copy and paste from. That's all that does. The nice thing though is when we start tidying up stuff like this and having our data clean, it makes it a lot easier for us to go in and sort stuff and do filters and whatever, because the data is going to match the same. In the next session that we look at, we're going to go and dive a little bit deeper. We're going to do more fun with this kind of stuff, and I'm going to show you how you can actually take your Google form, submit something to a list here, then have this list actually update on the choices on your Google form. Really cool stuff. But that's it for part 1. If you have any questions, by all means, please feel free to reach out. You can use the comment function here. I will keep an eye open there and try and get back to you. Other than that, have fun, good luck, and thanks for joining.